ميعوا الدين وأتوا بنواقض التوحيد، نقضوا عقيدة الولاء والبراء من أصلها، وآخوا المشركين من دون المؤمنين.
Then I'm actually obligated as a Muslim to obey those laws. I'm obligated. So it's actually, in a funny way, it's part of Sharia to obey the United States law.
What I believe is, as time passes, people need to be taught to uphold the law of the land that they live in as Muslims. So if you're living in Australia or in the UK or, for example, in USA, it's important that you respect the law of the land. Very important.
A lot people saying to us, yeah, but it says in Islam we must obey the law of the land, things like this. Or they say, we agree, but the harm outweighs the benefit, things like this.
Okay. First thing, when people say, in Islam it says obey the law of the land. Okay. If somebody says that is a verse of the Quran, he's kafir because he made up a verse of the Quran, lies about Allah. Okay. There's no verse of the Quran or hadith of the Prophet ﷺ whatsoever that says obey the law of the land. Rather, all of the verses and the hadith, they have a common theme: obey Allah and obey the Messenger. And anybody who orders you something different from that, leave them and obey Allah and His Messenger. That's clear. Okay, we obey those in authority among the Muslims if they rule by Islam. And if the Muslim rule by other than Islam or disobey Islam, we reject him and we go back to Allah and His Messenger. This verse in Surah Nisa, verse 59, it says, Ya alladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. He said, oh, you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger. وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنْ تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And those in authority among you, if you differ with them in any matter, leave them, go back to Allah and His Messenger. That is the best for you. Okay, so this is what we need to understand. Okay, the obedience is to Allah specifically. We obey Muhammad because he is obedience to Allah. Okay, the Prophet said, "Man ata'ani faqad ata'a Allah." The one who obeyed me has obeyed Allah. Okay, so we obey Muhammad because it's obedience to Allah, because his speech is revelation, his actions are revelation. But the man who is not in speech and action is not revelation, we will only obey them if they order us in something which is in accordance with the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's nothing called obeying the kufr law of the land you're living in, the kufr. There's no way anything that's happened. Rather, Allah says the opposite. Surah Ahzab verse 1, Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu taqillah wa la tuti'al kafirin wal munafiqin. He said, don't, O Prophet, fear Allah. Do not obey the disbelievers or the hypocrites. And the other verse in Surah An'am, Surah 6, verse 121, Allah says that وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ إِنَّكُمْ لَمُشْرِكُونَ. Okay, regarding those who make man-made laws, making halal what Allah made haram and so on, He said if you obey them, you become mushrikeen. You become the polytheists. So there's nothing called obey the law of the land. There's something called obey Allah and let the shaitan and tawheed go to hell. Okay, that's what we have in terms of obedience. Yes.
So because obviously we live in England, so not obeying the law but actually just living within it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as nobody's saying here you have to go out and find every law and break it. That's not what it means. We don't obey. Allah Ta'ala says don't steal. Okay, and the law of the land says don't steal. So what? We don't start stealing. Allah said don't steal. So I don't steal because Allah said it's haram, illegal for me to steal. Not because of the queen. Who cares about the queen? Okay, I don't drink because Allah said it's haram, illegal, even though the law says it's legal. Okay, I don't buy insurance because Allah said it's illegal, even though the law says you must. You understand? So we will obey Allah's laws and we don't care about the man-made laws. Okay, if they happen to be similar and coincide, okay, that's not a problem. But we don't obey it because of the queen, because the queen has no right to be obeyed. But we obey Allah because He has the right to be obeyed, and He's the only one who has the right to be obeyed.
No.
Okay, so some people argue that because those Muslims made hijrah to Abyssinia in order to save their deen, so that therefore they were law-abiding citizens and they didn't attack the king or do anything like that, so we must obey the law of the land, basically is the argument. This is nonsense, and this is exaggerating a matter and adding something to the story is not part of it. And we know, the one who lies about Rasulullah and lies about the Sunnah and the companion is something very serious. The Muslims who went to Abyssinia, they went because they didn't want to abide by the law of Mecca, which was against Islam. That's why they left. Because if you cannot live by Islam where you are, you go somewhere where you can live. So when they went to Abyssinia, they didn't fight the king. But why did they need to fight the king for? If you go somewhere seeking asylum, that means you have with them a covenant of security. The covenant of security means that there's an understanding between you and them, that you will not betray each other, you will not fight each other, you will not take each other's wealth. And even at that time, jihad was not even prescribed. Even in Mecca, they were forbidden. It said, "Kufu aydiyakum," don't fight. Hold back your hands from fighting them. Let alone when you go and have a covenant of security where you have an understanding that we will not fight each other. You will protect us and we will not betray you. That's the Muslim. Muslim does not betray. That does not mean you obey the law of the land. It's got nothing to do with it. In fact, the law of Abyssinia, the Najashi, was that when the king enters, or when you enter the court of the king, that you bow to the king. It was their own protocol. And so when the Najashi called the Muslims to his court, and all the people in the court, in the room, they bowed to the king. But the Muslims refused to bow. They didn't obey the law of the land. They refused to bow. They asked him, what prevented you from obeying our law? What prevented you from doing like everybody else and obeying our law? To bow in front of the king. They said, we don't bow except to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the Muslim wherever he is. He doesn't obey except Allah. He will obey Allah wherever he is. So they didn't go to Abyssinia and become an Abyssinian citizen. That wasn't what they were there for. They were there as Muslims. We came here so we can prevail our deen here, because they wouldn't allow us to prevail our deen there, and we'll never obey them. We'll obey Allah alone. We will never bow to any man, we will only bow to Allah. We will never stand for any man, we will only stand for Allah. We will never prostrate to any man, we will only prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was what the Muslims did in Abyssinia. And if the Najashi were to force them to commit shirk or kufr, to disobey Allah, they would have left Abyssinia and gone somewhere else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had put in the Abyssinian king that he was upon from the people of the book. The Christians he still used to follow the original Injil. This is why he used to have fairness, because he used to rule by the old book of Allah, the Bible. Okay? And that's why obviously after him there was another Najashi, even he became Muslim after that as well, the second Najashi. So that's the reason why they went there, to save their deen, not to become Abyssinian citizen. They were Muslim first, Muslim last, wherever they are. And Allah subhanahu said, وَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقِينَ. Do not obey the disbelievers, do not obey the hypocrites. So we don't add something to it that wasn't part of it. The covenant of security or asylum is a contract to preserve the blood and the wealth. Is to say that both parties, Muslim and non-Muslim, I will not attack you in your life, nor take your wealth without your permission, and nor will you do that to me. That's what the common security is. Has nothing to do with obeying the laws, has nothing to do with joining the armies or the police or spying for them. You don't do any of these things. And when there was civil war in Abyssinia, and the Abyssinian king was fighting, the Muslims didn't get involved in the fighting. They went out on a boat and they were waiting to see what happened. They didn't say, okay, we'll join your army because we're really Abyssinian, we're proud to be Abyssinian, we're proud to be British, give oath of allegiance. No. They said, look, we're Muslim, we're here, yes, and as a guest, seeking asylum, and we'll give da'wah where we are. Like it or don't like it. And the people had civil war because of the Muslims. They wanted to throw the Muslims out, but the Abyssinian king said, no, we're going to protect them. The people were upset with them as well. Okay, you had the ADL, Abyssinian Defense League. They had civil war against the Abyssinian king, Najashi. And Najashi defeated them until the Muslims returned and were safe and secure. Okay, if the Abyssinian king was defeated, then they would have attacked the Muslims. That's why they were hiding in a boat. Again, should have brought that example even here in the talk. They were hiding in a boat, waiting to see what happens in the war. Okay, so they continued to give da'wah in Abyssinia until even the second Najashi became Muslim, and Abyssinia entered Islam without fighting, through the da'wah of those Muslims. So this is how we need to understand, inshallah, the reality of the hijrah to Abyssinia.